Imagine a piece of metal, like the size of a coin.
Yeah.
It's traveling at roughly 70,000 miles per hour through the vacuum of orbit.
Yeah, and at that speed, if that coin hits a military communications satellite, entire command networks on the ground can go completely dark in seconds.
Right. Now, imagine someone launching that coin on purpose. Welcome to the new reality of national
Yeah.
security. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah,
Consider this deep dive, your war room briefing.
exactly. We're going deep today.
If you're prepping for an exam or a high-level strategic meeting, you're in the right place. We are zeroing in on a massive trigger event that just, completely shifted India's defense posture.
Yeah.
I'm talking about Antariksha Abhyas 2024.
Right, the first ever dedicated space defense war game held right in New Delhi.
Yeah.
What's fascinating here is that this war game is the clearest signal yet that the old paradigm is, well, it's dead.
Dead and gone. Because for decades, India's space narrative was purely about peaceful exploration, right?
Absolutely. Civilian utility. Think cost-effective Mars missions and weather satellites. But Antariksha Abhyas 2024, which was spearheaded by the Defense Space Agency, means we are officially operationalizing space security.
We're acknowledging that space is a highly contested dual-use domain now.
Yes. The war game was designed to validate operational procedures and, figure out exactly how to integrate space-based capabilities directly into joint military operations.
Across the Army, Navy, and Air Force.
Precisely. It's a whole new ballgame.
Let's hover on that phrase for a second, dual-use domain. Because it's a core concept you really need in your strategic arsenal.
It really is.
Essentially, the exact same optical technology that tracks a cyclone forming in the Bay of Bengal, well, it can be used to track troop movements across a border. A satellite doesn't know if it's civilian or military. It just collects data.
Right, it just looks down. So when everyone has these eyes in the sky, deterrence, resilience, and redundancy become absolute necessities. And the stakes are just astronomical. Our entire modern economy and military apparatus relies on space. Banking transactions, logistics, precise navigation for civilian flights.
And missile guidance systems, too. I mean, that's huge.
Exactly. If an adversary degrades our space infrastructure, they don't even need to cross a physical border to paralyze the nation.
Wow. Right.
That is why Antariksha Abhyas 2024 was conducted. It's about moving from capability demonstration to true strategic autonomy.
So we didn't just wake up in 2024 and decide to run a space war game out of nowhere. Let's map out the institutional timeline. Because if you're building an argument on paper, you need to show the historical evolution. It started off quite fragmented. Right?
Oh, highly fragmented. If we look at the government response framework, the initial realization happened around 2010.
Okay, 2010.
Yeah, the government set up the Integrated Space Cell within the Integrated Defense Staff. The goal was simply to get the military to coordinate its needs with ISRO, the Civilian Space Agency, and DRDO, the Defense Research Wing.
But it was just a cell, right? Like a coordination desk, essentially. It wasn't an operational command.
Exactly, just as said.
It sounds like a Band-Aid solution, honestly. Just putting a few liaisons in a room and hoping they share notes.
Which is why the real structural leap didn't happen until 2018. That was the game-changer year. The government realized a coordination cell wasn't going to cut it against advanced orbital threats, so they created the Defense Space Agency, or DSA.
DSA.
Got it. This is your most critical institutional anchor. The DSA isn't just a think tank. It is tasked with actually integrating tri-services space operations. They are the ones who led the Antariksha Abhyas war game.
And behind the DSA, you have the R&D muscle, which is the DSRO, the Defense Space Research Organization.
Right.
Their whole mandate is applied research in counter space tech and threat mitigation. But, to defend yourself, you actually have to see what's happening up there.
Yeah.
That brings us to NITRA.
Oh, NITRA is a brilliant acronym to drop in an exam or a brief.
It really is. NITRA is India's SSA program's Space Situational Awareness. But how does NITRA actually work in practice, like on the ground?
Think of space situational awareness as a highly complex air traffic control system, but for the entire orbital environment. NITRA uses a vast network of upgraded optical telescopes and long-range tracking radars to monitor the skies.
So they're predicting orbital mechanics.
Yes. It tracks space debris, defunct satellites, and most importantly, active foreign satellites. Without NITRA, we are essentially blind. I mean, you cannot deter a threat if you cannot see it maneuvering.
Okay, so the DSA is sitting in their command center, pulling in radar data from NITRA. What exactly are they looking at on their screens that has them so worried? Because when we say space threats, my mind immediately jumps to, like, Star Wars-style lasers or satellites firing missiles at each other.
It is so much more subtle and stealthy than cinematic laser battles. To analyze this properly, we have to break the threat matrix down into distinct dimensions. First, you have the non-military threats.
Right, because space is inherently hostile even before anyone fires a shot.
Exactly. You've got uncontrolled natural hazards. The debris we mentioned earlier, micrometeorites, extreme radiation bursts, and atmospheric anomalies. Just keeping a satellite alive in the vacuum of space is a daily battle.
A huge challenge.
But the military threats are where the strategic calculus completely changes. These are divided into kinetic and non-kinetic. Kinetic threats involve physical destruction.
Like ASATs.
Yes, a prime example here is the ASAT, or anti-satellite weapon. These are direct ascent missiles launched from Earth, or even orbital systems designed to physically obliterate a target satellite.
But wait, blowing things up in space creates thousands of pieces of shrapnel, right? Debris that could circle back and destroy your own satellites. It's almost mutually assured destruction in orbit, so I imagine adversaries prefer non-kinetic methods.
You hit the nail on the head. That is the exact strategic pivot happening globally right now. Adversaries are moving heavily into non-kinetic and cyber or electronic threats. Instead of destroying a satellite, why not blind it or hijack it?
Makes sense.
This includes directed energy systems. You mentioned lasers earlier. They aren't used to blow up the satellite. It's a tactic called laser dazzling.
Laser dazzling, wow.
Yeah, it's essentially like shining an incredibly high-powered flashlight directly into a sniper scope. The satellite remains physically intact, but its high-resolution optical sensors are completely blinded and useless.
That is terrifyingly efficient. And then you have the cyber dimension, right?
Oh, absolutely. Jamming the uplinks and downlinks, spoofing GPS signals so troops on the ground get the wrong coordinates, or, executing deep cyber intrusions targeting the satellite's command networks and encryption systems.
And this brings us to the most ambiguous threat of all.
Right.
I want to latch onto one specific term from the source material that really stands out here. Rendezvous and proximity operations, or RPOs. To me, this sounds like covert tailgating in orbit.
Covert tailgate is the perfect analogy.
Let's visualize this for a second. You have a multi-million-dollar military communications satellite up there. Suddenly, Nitra detects a foreign satellite drifting incredibly close to it. It's matching its orbit, shadowing it.
Yeah.
Is it just space junk drifting? Is it a dead satellite? Or is it a highly advanced espionage platform using signals intelligence payloads to siphon our encrypted data?
Or worse.
Right. They might even be preparing to physically grapple our satellite or subtly push it out of orbit. The ambiguity is the weapon. It's espionage happening thousands of miles above the Earth, compromising operational secrecy.
Exactly. And if an adversary does that, how do we respond? That is the nightmare scenario Antariksha Javia's 2024 was trying to wargame, because reacting to an RPO requires seamless coordination.
So this brings me to a crucial reality check. I have to push back on this entire narrative for a second.
All right, go for it.
We are talking about multi-billion-dollar ASAT systems, dedicated space commands, and tri-services integration. Historically, India's space program has prided itself on being incredibly cost-effective, civilian-focused, and peaceful. Mongolian reached Mars on a shoestring budget compared to other nations.
True.
Can we actually afford to enter a high-stakes orbital arms race? Or are we just playing catch-up and hoping for the best? Because the ambition sounds great on paper, but bureaucratic reality is usually a different story.
Your pushback hits the absolute core of the critical evaluation layer here. It is vital to balance government ambitions with realistic ground-level limitations. We're not just playing catch-up, but we are battling severe institutional anchors that weigh us down. First and foremost, functional silos.
Explain what that actually looks like in practice, because functional silos is a great phrase for an exam, but what does it mean when the alarm bells actually ring?
Well, imagine that covert tailgating scenario an RPO is detected. Nitra spots it. Now, ISRO holds the civilian expertise in orbital mechanics. DRDO holds the classified counterspace technology.
Okay.
The Air Force and Army are the ones who actually need the satellite for tactical ground operations. Historically, these organizations have totally different cultures. ISRO is transparent and scientific. DRDO is secretive and military.
Right, completely different world.
Exactly. Getting them to share real-time data seamlessly without bureaucratic turf wars is incredibly difficult. They have operated in their own lanes for decades. If a cyber attack happens on a satellite, you cannot have the Air Force waiting for a committee meeting with ISRO to figure out a response.
So the silos create a lag time that adversaries can exploit.
Exactly. Furthermore, we are facing significant resource constraints. You ask if we can afford it. The truth is, government funding alone isn't enough anymore, and there is extremely limited private capital flowing into high-risk space defense technologies in India compared to other global powers.
Yeah, the funding gap is real.
Add to that a glaring governance gap. The absence of a cohesive, unified national defense space strategy. We lack a comprehensive doctrine that dictates acquisition and joint operations.
And without that doctrine,
Right, because we lack that overarching doctrine. Our famously slow defense procurement cycles kick in. It takes years to acquire and deploy these crucial counterspace and SSA systems.
if the threats are moving at 17,000 miles an hour and our procurement cycles are moving at the speed of a bureaucratic file, how does the government bridge this gap? What is the administrative way forward?
To fix this, the recommendations must be structural. First, policy finalization. The government urgently needs to finalize the remote sensing policy and the SATCOM policy to create a streamlined regulatory framework.
Okay, policy first.
Second, institutional strengthening. We must institutionalize daily operational collaboration between the DSA, the DSRO, and ISRO. You have to force these agencies to co-locate and train together, which is exactly what Antariksha APS started doing.
Right.
Third, integration. We need to integrate military SATCOM ISR, which is intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance and navigation assets, into a single joint battle network. The Army, Navy, and Air Force must operate off the exact same real-time orbital picture.
And what about the capital deficit you mentioned? How do we solve the funding issue?
That requires aggressive public-private partnerships. The government must promote private sector participation in building SSA sensors, developing quantum-safe communication payloads, and creating onboard autonomy systems for satellites.
So they can automatically dodge debris or threats without waiting for ground commands.
Exactly.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, bringing in domestic private players isn't just about saving money. It is a direct reflection of the Amana Bharat mandate, the push for self-reliance. If our military communications rely on foreign components or foreign launch vehicles, we are fundamentally vulnerable to supply chain shocks or geopolitical blackmail.
That is the crucial interlinking engine right there. You cannot discuss space defense without connecting it to national security and technology transformation.
Right.
This entire shift from the 2018 creation of the DSA to the Antariksha Abhiya's Wargame represents a vital leap towards strategic autonomy. It proves that space resilience is intrinsically tied to our global standing. You cannot be a modern geopolitical power if your orbital assets are defenseless.
All right, let's bring all of this strategy directly to your desk. If you are sitting in a war room, or more likely, sitting down to write a strategic exam answer, you can't just list threats and agencies randomly. You need to structure the argument to show you understand the operational vocabulary.
Yeah, structure is everything.
So let's convert this. If you need to deliver a tight, high-impact 150-word argument, how do we frame it?
Think of a 150-word structure as an executive brief.
Short and punchy.
Exactly. It requires an intro, 3 tightly wound body arguments, and a way ahead. Your intro shouldn't just state a fact, it should state a shift. Something like, the Antariksha Abhiya's 2024 Wargame marks India's critical doctrinal shift from capability demonstration to operationalizing space security.
That's a strong opening.
Then for your 3 body arguments, hit the tension points. Argument 1, the escalation of dual-use, non-kinetic threats like laser dazzling at RPOs. Argument 2, the internal vulnerabilities, specifically those functional silos between ISR, DRDO, and the military, compounded by sluggish procurement.
And the third.
Argument 3, the imperative for tri-services integration to protect ISR and SATCOM networks. Then your way ahead elegantly concludes the thought. Emphasize the urgent necessity of a unified national defense space strategy and deep private sector integration.
That is incredibly sharp. But what if you are tasked with a comprehensive 250-word analytical deep dive? You have more room, but that means more room to lose the narrative thread.
Right. For a 250-word structure, you expand systematically into dimensions and recommendations. Your context sets up space as the new contested strategic high ground.
Okay.
Under dimensions, categorize the threats analytically. Do not just list them. Contrast military versus non-military hazards, and then contrast kinetic ASATs versus cyber and electronic threats.
Showing you understand the nuances.
Yes. Under challenges, you expose the structural flaws. Discuss capital deficits, the bureaucratic turf wars, and the missing doctrinal frameworks. Under recommendations, deploy strong administrative vocabulary. urge the finalization of SATCOM policies, demand robust DSRO and DSA synergy, and call for the expansion of the Nitra optical network.
I like that.
Finally, your conclusion must be the anchor. Tie it all back to Atmanirbhar Bharat and strategic autonomy. Explain that space resilience is the bedrock of future national security.
As you write this, or, as you prepare your talking points, I want you to underline these specific keywords. Dual-use technology, ASAT, RPO, Nitra SA, functional silos, and strategic autonomy.
Yeah.
Using these exact terms proves to an examiner or a strategic board that you aren't just summarizing news, you are analyzing a defense posture.
Exactly. It shows you understand not just what happened with the war game, but why it matters for the entire governance and security architecture of the country.
We've covered a massive amount of ground today, from the historical timeline of the DSA to the complex threat matrix of RPOs and cyber intrusions, all the way down to the bureaucratic hurdles of functional silos. But I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over.
Let's hear it.
If space is the ultimate dual-use high ground, and every major power is aggressively developing these so-called defensive capabilities like laser dazzling and proximity operations, how close are we to an accidental orbital conflict?
Oh, that's a chilling thought.
Right. If a piece of space debris knocks out a military satellite during a geopolitical crisis, or if a routine proximity maneuver is misunderstood as an act of war, who makes the call? In a domain where everything moves at thousands of miles an hour in total silence, the line between a tragic accident and a full-scale kinetic war is terrifyingly thin.
That ambiguity is the ultimate strategic dilemma of the 21st century space age. To ensure you are fully prepared to articulate these complexities, let's lock in a rapid-fire, last-minute revision capsule.
Let's do it.
Here are your 5 must-remember facts. Number 1. The Antariksha Apya's 2024 war game was led by the Defense Space Agency in New Delhi. Number 2. That same DSA was established in 2018 specifically to force tri-services integration.
Number 3.
Number 3. Nitra is your key acronym. It's India's Space Situational Awareness Program tracking the skies. Number 4. The primary covert military threats are rendezvous and proximity operations, or RPOs. And number 5. The biggest internal roadblock is functional silos separating ISRO, DRDO, and the armed forces.
Perfect. And if you are prepping for an exam, here's your one probable high-level question to practice. What institutional reforms are necessary to achieve strategic autonomy in space?
And finally, your 5 analytical keywords to deploy in any answer. Strategic autonomy, space situational awareness, dual-use technology, rendezvous and proximity operations, and institutional integration.
You are now armed with the exact frameworks, the operational vocabulary, and the deep strategic context needed to master this topic. Take these memory anchors, use those exact answer structures, and you will dominate any question on this subject. Keep analyzing the bigger picture, keep questioning the systems, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.